Hey everyone, it's Byron here once again to testify for Jesus Christ. Today is October the 9th, 2017. I want to share with you a video I'm going to title Crossing the Jordan. And I've been putting some thought into this thing for years about what was the significance of crossing the Jordan. Last night I had an incident where I fell asleep, woke up, and was restless and kept thinking about crossing the Jordan. Finally, I saw a vision of my wife. She looked at me and said, I've just got to get this off my chest. So I woke up and did a video last night right in the house. And as I did that video, near the conclusion of the video, I did something that spoke to me. And for the conclusion of the night and into this morning, I have thought about that as spoken to me. And then just a little later, I realized I need to publish a video, but not the one I did last night. And I'm going to include the things that spoke to me and also the things that should speak to you. Back in the book of Numbers, I think around 13, they begin to talk about crossing over the Jordan. And there's some crossing into the promised land. Children of Israel actually should have gone into the promised land, but because of unbelief, they did not go. Now, I want to quantify unbelief. Unbelief that the Lord would do what he said he would do, that is to give them the land. So they didn't take a step, walk into Israel as promised to their father and the father of our faith, Abraham. They spent 40 years in the wilderness. And I want to just say, being in the wilderness or staying in the wilderness is not necessarily something that's isolated to the children of Israel at that time. We as Christians can be in the wilderness, needing to break out of the wilderness experience and be locked in there by unbelief. Now, that's not the only type of thing that you would want to come out of the wilderness or go into the wilderness over, as defined by people around the world. But in that particular case, they were in the wilderness during unbelief, and we can be in the wilderness because of unbelief also. There came another time in which they were ready to go back into the promised land, the same land that was promised to their forefathers. And at this particular time, Joshua was in the lead, and the children of Israel came to a point just east of the Jordan River. There was a tribe, a half tribe of Manasseh, the tribe of Reuben, and the tribe of Gad, who had received their inheritance on the east side of the Jordan River. But the children of Israel were going to have to go across the Jordan River, stopping at Jericho in the way, and there's a whole story, and then move on and move the people out of their promised land, their inheritance. So the Bible gives us a story about this stuff, and we realize that, you know, there's some people that never made it out of the wilderness because of unbelief. But just as we pick up in Joshua, we start seeing instructions to the people. And one of the instructions was that the priest would have to carry the ark of God ahead of the children of Israel in the process of crossing over the Jordan. And God made a promise to them. He said, when those priests' feet touch the Jordan, he will stop the waters. And that is one of the things that I want to put emphasis on, is that the priest did an act with a load on their back, the ark. And that act, by doing that act, by being obedient, and also by having faith and not being in unbelief like their predecessors, they stepped into that water of the Jordan River. And then God stopped the waters, and the children of Israel crossed over. Now, when you think about an Old Testament story, and you think about the time, well, that's a neat little story, I want to expand and try to realize that that's an example for us. That's an example for us in this life. So, the children of Israel had been in a strange land, held captive there. The children of Israel were given a promise that they would go to the promised land. At this point, they were crossing over the Jordan. Now, there's a promise to us. If you look in I got a couple scriptures here I just want to read, that we will inherit the earth. In Psalm 25:13, it says, "His soul shall dwell at ease, and his seed shall inherit the earth." For evildoers will be cut off. This is Psalm 37:9. For evildoers will be cut off, but those that wait upon the Lord, they shall inherit the earth. Psalm 37:11. But the meek shall inherit the earth, and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace. And then 37:22 in Psalms. For such as be blessed of him shall inherit the earth, and they shall be cursed of him, and they that be cursed of him shall be cut off. And then again in Matthew, the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5:5, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. So back in the Old Testament times, Abraham was given a promise, your children will return to this land. Abraham is the father of our faith. Abraham descendant was Isaac. Isaac is Jacob. Jacob became Israel. That is, through Isaac, the promise was made to us. And that's how we have this promise of the inheriting the earth. But the problem that we run into is that if all that applies back then, and we still have a promise, our inheritance is the earth, there's something between us and our promise. And what is between us and the promise is a river. And this is actually a creek where it flows into the Tennessee River. Tennessee River is dammed up, so this particular creek looks huge at the end of it as it goes into the river. But this thing goes back into the mountains, actually up into the Tennessee Mountain Divide, just west of here, a little southwest of here, and I've floated it in the kayak. It's a small little creek back over there. But at the time that the children of Israel had to cross the Jordan, the river was at flood stage. So we can take this creek and say, well, if you're calling that a creek right there, and it's probably a half a mile across, it looks like to me. This little creek is at flood stage. So there's a lot between us and what's in those trees over there. And let's just pretend for the moment that would be necessarily the promised land of the Bible times, and they had this in front of them. Or our promises, the meek shall inherit the earth, or those that wait upon the Lord shall inherit the earth. And our promise is over there. And we have this obstacle in front of us, and the obstacle is this water, or the river, the Jordan River at that time. And this is just represented by Flint Creek near the mouth, or where it dumps into the Tennessee River. The thing that separated the people that make it over there and the people that didn't, that stayed here on this side of the Jordan, was faith or belief. They believed, so they went over and they took that step into the water, and God parted the waters. Now, what are some things in our life that we can think of that we know are ahead of us, or we think of that we believe the Lord has called us to do? We think that this would be His will to do, and we need to be not in unbelief that the Lord will fulfill His promise and give us our inheritance through the steps that we take between here and there. But that it's just, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. But yeah, what are some things that would be in front of us? Well, right now, here on this earth, if you live in the United States of America, one of the things that is in between you and your inheritance is the judgment of God. The judgment of God has come to America. It is going to get worse and worse and worse. But there's some people that should be able to take the steps of faith and walk, and God part the waters for them as they step across the Jordan River, so to speak, into enemy-held territory, so that they can gain their inheritance. So we're left here on this earth. We're left here, the wheat and the tares, we're all together. The children of Israel walked across the Jordan, fully knowing God wasn't going to run those people out until they occupied. So we're actually in an occupation mode, where you would say, light, we shine light into darkness. So just an example that I was wanting to use, something that I thought was important to me. For me personally, I've had a dream before. I'll put the the thing on the screen for you. For me personally, I had a dream where I flew across the Tennessee River, just a little north and west of here, into enemy-held territory. Now, as I look back on that, I'm realizing, Lord, that's the same thing that the children of Israel did. And some priest, somebody had to take the first step. But the instructions, and this is what's beautiful too, something that came out in one of the Bible studies we did, a gentleman brought up. In the instructions to the children of Israel from, I believe it was from Joshua, the statement was made, we have not gone this way heretofore. Meaning we're about to go a way that we've never been. We're about to experience something that we've never experienced. We're about to, you kind of get what I'm saying. I'm running out of ways to just articulate it. But what's about to happen on this earth is something that has not occurred in our lifetime, nor in many people's lifetime. And we still, even though we're going a way that we've never been before, we've got to take the step and move out. I've said many times, you don't have to do what I'm doing. You don't have to do what anybody else up and down the street's doing. You have to do the will of God for your life. So I share those things. I wanted to get that going. I got a guy that's fixing to walk behind the camera here, but I wanted to get that out there and just encourage you to take the steps of faith like those priests did. And if you do take those steps like those priests did, these waters will part. God will make a way. He's going to make a way and fulfill the promise, and you will inherit this earth. New Jerusalem will come down. God will be with his people on this earth. Now, at that time, it's not going to be this particular earth. It's going to be a new heaven and a new earth, but you will inherit that. So take the steps of faith as was used for an example. And one other thing, something I think about a lot, there's a phrase in the Bible, we have a great cloud of witnesses, meaning to me that there's witnesses in the sky like Moses and Joshua and the different people from the Bible, Jeremiah and all the folks. They're a great cloud of witnesses. They have witnessed and are witnessing what is occurring. And I just think, man, I've got this great cloud of witnesses before me, and God, I'm not going to let God down. I'm not going to let Jesus down, the Holy Ghost down, nor this great cloud of witnesses. I want to walk the steps of faith as Abraham established and those priests demonstrated to get across this river into our inheritance and our promised land. So, thank you.